you can know that we're in a time of change and become a force yourself in the way the change goes. Become a force in the direction. And that is really what I like to think that we're all as entrepreneurs here to do.
This is The Entrepreneur Way with Neil Ball. Unlocking the secrets of successful entrepreneurs 7 days a week. Subscribe to our podcast and follow us on Twitter at Neil D. Ball. Napoleon Hill said the power of the mastermind is the driving force. To discover how you can unlock the potential in your business using the power of a mastermind, go to mastermindunlimited.com. And now, here is your host, Neil Ball.
Hello, it's Neil Ball here. Thank you so much for joining me today on The Entrepreneur Way. The Entrepreneur Way is about the entrepreneur's journey, the vision, the mindset, the commitment, the sacrifice, failures, and successes. I am so excited to bring you our special guest today, Dianne Collins. But before I introduce you to her, I have a quote for you. You never have to know all the answers because you won't be asked all the questions. The Entrepreneur Way asks the questions so we all get the insight, inspiration and ideas to apply in our businesses. Dianne, welcome to the show. Are you ready to share your version of the Entrepreneur Way with us?
Absolutely, yes. I'd be delighted to share.
Great, Dianne. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me, Neil.
It's a pleasure. Imagine if your thoughts were as up-to-date as your technology. Well, it is possible when you quantum think. My guest today is Dianne Collins, original thinker and media personality and author of 6-time award-winning bestseller Do You QuantumThink? New thinking that will rock your world, which is considered a must-read book for changing times. Dianne's life is dedicated to people living spirited, joyful and masterful lives through leaps in awareness and learning that she calls the physics of the mind. Dianne created the Quantum Think system of thinking, 21 principles that connect us to living off to our full potential, from inner serenity to harmonious relationships, business results and global affairs. Dianne, can you provide us with some more insight into your business and personal life to allow us to get to know more about what you do and who you are?
I would love to.
Thank you.
Well, first let me say that I am living for many years now in Miami Beach, Florida in the USA, and I live with my husband who's British. And we've been working together, Dianne K. Collins. We've been working in our partners in everything in business together for as long as we've been married, which is 26 years. And what we do is we consult and coach and deliver teleconference programs, mostly in business. We've also done it in agencies of the United States government, and we have public programs from time to time for individual entrepreneurs, solopreneurs. And what we do is we apply quantum thinking, expansion in your thinking, to the results that you want to produce in life. And so we've worked with many major corporations, all over the world. One time we had a program where we had 8 different time zones with people in it from 8 different time zones. So we know that it works. And the interesting thing is, Neil, is that I kind of did things backwards. I know a lot of people, they have an idea, they write a book, and then they develop a program out of it and then develop a coaching or a consulting business. And for me, what I did, I finally got my book, Do You QuantumThink, out a few years ago. And people do consider it classic. So what it's about, what I was going to say is I did it kind of backwards, because we first delivered these principles, the 21 Quantum Think principles, which I call distinctions in new thinking. These are based in insights from cutting edge science. Quantum Think is not about science. It's about how the discoveries of science have shaped the way we think and how we can use the new discoveries to shape the way we think. And at the same time, the new discoveries, which we can call quantum insights for short, and a lot of people are now, that's the new buzzword, quantum this, quantum that, are proving in the scientific experimentation what the perennial wisdom, the wisdom that is common to all mastery traditions. So it's ancient, it's timeless, and it's new at the same time. And my part of it is that I wanted to know, how do we go from merely knowing the wisdom to actually living it? And so that's what I do, is make it practical and modern in everyday life, how it applies to, how can we quantum think to get faster, better, easier, more exciting results in our businesses. And because life is holistic and holographic, that's very first principle. Everything influences everything else. If you have a transformation or a leap, like in the octave of your performance, of your mastery in a certain area with one relationship, let's say a business partner, a business associate, a client relationship, that transformation affects all of your relationships. So that's a long but a short form of what we've been doing. And what I was going to say is, so it works. So I knew it was working because we were delivering these programs and delivering the Quantum Think distinctions orally. And then eventually I thought, well, I've got to get this out, make it more available and accessible to everyone in the world. And that's when I finally put together the book, Do You Quantum Think?
Uh-huh. And can you just give some examples of the types of things that you do with this?
Well,
in terms of what I'm really thinking is, could you give us examples of how you've applied your thinking so that it's created, it's made some kind of difference?
Yes, of course. Well, let me just give you a little bit of the premise of it, is that we're in a quantum age. We have much more knowledge available to us, especially, people talk about mindset, or we have to have the right, positive mental attitude or any of that stuff. But this takes it much further, let's say, than that. Because it used to be, well, let me give the premise. The premise is that we're in a quantum age, but we're still very much under the influence of industrial age thinking. What's the difference? Two entirely different set of assumptions that we could call the worldview. What we believe to be true about the nature of reality, how it works, what we're capable of, what's not, what we're not, what's possible, and what's not. And so that, what I lovingly call the old world view, that began in the 17th century and up through, let's say, the time of Einstein, where everything was, the science actually declared only physical matter is real. So everything was around the physical dimension. And in the physical dimension, you say, is the dimension of circumstances. So how does this apply to thinking and results? Well, when you look in the circumstances to see what's possible, you're going to be limited by what has already occurred in the past. So when you're quantum thinking, in contrast, when you're quantum thinking, you realize that regardless of existing circumstances, that when you have a shift in your own perspective, which actually has a resonance to it. When you say, I resonate with that, I don't resonate with that, that's how things actually manifest. And this has everything to do with our habits of thinking. So when you're quantum thinking, what you're able to do, Neil, is you're able to distinguish the habits of thinking that you have, and who knows, and who, it doesn't matter how they got there. They could be from the culture, from your ancestry. It doesn't make any difference. I call these least action pathways. The least creative action, the least conscious action. They just, they come in and then you notice them. As my husband says, they get there before you do. So when you're quantum thinking, you realize that fundamentally we're in a world of energy in flux informed by intelligence, and that we, as human observers, are able to shift the context, shift the trajectory of our results when we shift the context of how we think, how we approach a situation. I will tell you a specific example, but I wanted to give you the background of it so that everyone understands. So, and it's much simpler than you think, right? So I say it like this: old worldview, circumstance rules; new worldview, that quantum think distinguishes, intent rules. And underlying intent, which is a context that you're choosing to live from, underlying the intent is the quantum insight that there's no fixed way that something is. So there's no way that, the business is, the economy is, the government is, the politicians are. It really is a question of what you bring to it. That's called the observer effect in science. And I say it, observer created reality. What we as human observers bring to our observation shapes what happens. So to apply it, we have one of the distinctions, and I've kind of referred to it, is called success to mastery. Success to mastery, that we're in this time, because we're not in isolation here. We're in a time where three undeniable conditions are going on in the world. One is the pace of change is accelerating, and we know this. And anyone familiar with digital technology, we know that's getting, right? It's getting faster and faster and faster, the way it's changing. So, and that's a scientific fact, by the way, that the pace of change is accelerating. And secondly, that we have increasing complexity and choice because of our amazing technologies. Everyone has hundreds of identities, right, on the internet. And the third thing is, because we're in this time of a basic restructuring of our institutions, of our businesses, of ourselves, that every day there's a great amount of uncertainty. You turn on, you open up your cell phone and you never know what you're going to be hearing about in the news. So these three conditions, the pace of change, the increasing amount of choice, and, what's called in marketing noise, right? And the third thing is the uncertainty. Well, where do you find certainty in an uncertain world like this? And this is where I say, in the distinction, success to mastery, that we're in a time where we cannot just rely on our past successes to bring us through going forward. Even formulas, which are great, formulas that are based on past successes and what has worked, that have worked in the past may not work now. So what does it mean to move from success to mastery? Is that when you're working from a state of mastery, from an intent for mastery, you're looking right now in your business, in your life, at what is best and what will work now. And so the practice, which I call the recreation for each one of these quantum think distinctions, the practices I call a recreation to mean a double entendre, recreating the distinction in your life practically so that you're actually living it. And it also means recreation and amusement for your mind and awareness. But what the practice for success to mastery is to listen It's the simplest practice that everyone can begin right now, as I say it, to listen from not knowing. Now think of not knowing as a hyphenated one word. Listen from not knowing. Now, this has to be done, Neil, as a conscious act because we're always listening from knowing. Of course we are, because that's how we survive. You know, physically we have to. And we all have experiences and successes in the repertoire of our being. So we're always listening from knowing. But let's say you're in a new situation where you want to know, here is a client I would like to have as a client. And yet, actually, this happened to me. This client has been working with another company for, forever, let's say 20 years. And let's say this was many years ago. I'm new to this business. The client that I want has been working with this other provider, this other consultant for 20 years. So you might be in the automatic least action pathway thought, right? That, oh no, they're never going to. It's not like you want this, but it's just there in your being. They're never going to go with me, right? Because I don't have the experience. I don't have this. I don't have that. And so this is where you listen from not knowing to yourself, how you relate to yourself, how you relate to what's possible. And of course, many of the great entrepreneurial spirit, this is the entrepreneurial spirit, is that to a lot of us that comes naturally. And so what we say is sometimes that a least action pathway isn't bad. That's a least action pathway of an entrepreneurial spirit, and that's good. The difference is if you come across a circumstance like the one I just described, where you think you're not going to get the client, even though you have within you that entrepreneurial spirit, you will, when you're quantum thinking, you have enough awareness to realize just because you have a thought doesn't make it the truth. It's in no way absolute. You don't have to own it, and you don't have to identify with that thought in any way. Thereby, you go beyond your limiting thought. You listen from not knowing, and then what do? First, you interrupt that absolutely disempowering thought. You just let it fly by, as we say, like a bird past your window, and then what do? You create an intent for that relationship with that prospective client consciously, with the awareness that you're doing it. And an intent is something like this. I'm talking long, so I have to stop. You can ask your questions. But I wanted people to really be able to distinguish this together with me as I'm speaking, and everyone who is listening, but this is part of one conversation. The listening, the quality of listening is just as important as the speaking. So what do? A statement of intent is not an intention like an end result measurable. A statement of intent for that prospective client relationship could be said, for example, like this, that we're excited about meeting and discussing the possibilities of working together. We have respect for one another's value, and it's very exciting to be able to meet with this person this afternoon. Now, that statement is a statement of intent that you're choosing to live from. The default statement being, I don't know, all the I'm not good enough and every variation on that theme. From a quantum worldview, there's no absolute way that anything is. It's a question of, is the glass half full, is the glass half empty? The line of the water in the glass is the same. What will you live from? And when you're quantum thinking, you realize when you shift your state to a statement of intent like that, it's not, quote, the truth, either. It's not the truth that the client isn't going to go with you. It's not the truth that the client is excited to work with you. But when we coach our clients this way, because we understand the nature of how to use the faculties of mind that we're born with, these creative dynamics, it works. And it shifts the whole thing. And you shift the field because we exist in these invisible fields, of course, that the old worldview, which only focused on what we can see, feel, hear, touch, and, taste, you're not thinking about a relational field. But that's how most of everything in life gets accomplished, through that connection. So that was a lot said, but did that make sense to you?
Yeah, it does. Thank you for that. It's good to have an explanation of that. So, Dianne, can you talk about what you enjoy most about what you do?
Well, I enjoy most seeing people get results. I think everyone in business would say that. I enjoy seeing people get results. I enjoy something novel, always looking at something in a different way. And when I'm coaching a client, what I really enjoy is the ability to be in the moment and use all the faculties. So what I call the 5 natural faculties of mind: intent, which creates; intuition, which tunes in to, when we see the genius that wakes up in the middle of the night, Eureka, I found the answer, the solution. That, you could say, is an intuitive connection. And we all are using intuition all the time, though not necessarily consciously. So the second faculty of mind, intuition. The third faculty, subtle energy. We're always, everything in life has an energetic to it. And when you're attuned to it, you can use the energy. If you're angry, you can transmute that energy. You can use it. I do this on the tennis court where you get frustrated and I think, okay, how can I use this energy to, go to the next level in my tennis mastery? You can do this in business. So that's the third natural faculty. The fourth natural faculty is resonance. And this is also, it's a scientific fact that everything that manifests physically has a sympathetic resonance to it. And this is why, the opera singer who sings above a certain range can crack the glass. So, and why we say, I resonate with that, I don't resonate with that. Mm-hmm. And you can actually generate your own resonance when you understand the nature of it. And then the fifth natural faculty is meditation. Meditation, there's all kinds of things, mindfulness and leaders, and Google's doing it and they're teaching the children. But yet this is a natural faculty that when we remain centered, especially with the changing, tumultuous world that we live in, when you can connect to that state within yourself, a walking, talking, living meditation, not just sitting down with your eyes closed, that what happens is you connect in to the intelligent field that surrounds us, and solutions will arise that you wouldn't otherwise connect to because there's too much static, let's say, on the radio of your being. So it's like, do you have 2 bars up on your cell phone? Well, we're still functioning. But if you've got 5 bars up, you're really in strong connectivity, right? Mm-hmm. So it's something like that. So that's what I enjoy, is being in the experience of applying those natural faculties in the moment with my client so that I can tune into exactly what's next to have my client go to their next place in what they're trying to create in their business or in their vision for their business.
Okay. And what is it that drives you, Dianne?
What drives me is that, sometimes I say, Neil, It's amazing the world works as well as it does, right? Despite that, when you look in the news and you see so many problems. And so what drives me is really what I know is the higher nature of us as people, that people want to be great, that we're here to be great, that we're here. I have a chapter in Do You Quantum Think in part 1, Wake Up. Why should we quantum think? And there's a chapter called Mastery, where I'm talking about, how we adore the masters, the greats in every sport, the moguls in business, the great humanitarians. And so why do we love this? And also the masters of of religions, of the leaders, of spiritual leaders. And what was the message that they were giving us is that you are here to be a master in your own right. So what drives me is knowing this, like an inner conviction. Maybe I was born with it. This inner knowing that every single one of us is a genius, has unique qualities and traits and proclivities and passions, and that we are here to express that and to give that gift, the gifts that we've been given, to give those gifts to the rest of the world in exchange, in what we call the exchange of goods and services, and that's divinely inspired. And that, how do we do it? Because some people feel lost, or they feel, a lack of a sense of purpose, or they can't get past a certain stopping point in their business, or they reach a plateau and they think, how am I going to get beyond it? And then when the new things keep piling on in the world, the new discoveries, the new technologies, the new social media, it's like that. What I know is that when you have a masterful relationship with your own mind, or as I say, the official mantra of quantum thinking, when you master your mind, you master your life. Because mind, this is the quantum paradigm from the science. Mind is the creative substance. And we all know, all the books, Think and Grow Rich, so many other people, who have said everything begins in thought. We all know this. And so when we can learn to get in, I say, make your mind your friend, to make your mind your friend, which is to learn these principles, which to understand the faculties of mind, that we all have it and we're born to use it, then creating anything becomes so much easier, because whatever you want to create in life, you have to know the dynamics of creation. So this is what drives me, is that I've been given that gift, and, with deep gratitude, the vehicle of putting out this knowledge in this form that enables people to connect to it in themselves, so that they become masterful creators of their own results. Mm-hmm. That's what drives me.
And how do you relax when you're not working in your business and you're not quantum thinking and thinking of all this wonderful stuff?
I'm always quantum thinking, because that just becomes integrated, right? That's like the walking, talking embodiment of wisdom, that we're each here for that.
Yeah.
But it's not like it's not like the big panacea, it isn't, by the way, like your Pollyanna on a soapbox. It's that when something, a quote crisis or a set of circumstance, which we're all confronted with, comes up, that you're able to deal with it from a more masterful, a more centered place. Let me just say it like that. And so even in, I'm in business with my husband. I'll get to the relaxation, but I'm in business with my husband. So a lot of people say, how do you work with your spouse? Actually, we're going to be on a show next week that invited us both to be on. working it out, or I forget the name of it, but it's to talk about that in particular. And a lot of entrepreneurs do work with their spouses, and even some entrepreneurs, they should be working with their spouses, even if they're not, because that's the greatest support. But let's say that we've had to work things out, and we still do. I mean, we, don't see eye to eye on everything. So we could get into what I call, our morning debate, and sometimes really an upset, because you have that additional layer of relationship where you're married. Mm-hmm. And so, but we're able to move through it almost instantly, like in 5 minutes, move through any kind of upset. And this is what happens. So the relaxation. What do we do for relaxation? Well, we live on the beach in Miami Beach, so we are very avid tennis players. We go to the beach. We live in a resort town, so there are lots of things always going on here. And so spending time with family and friends, and I'm on the board of directors with Alan of the South Beach Chamber Ensemble, a music group. So we have fun doing that and going to the music and helping to raise money for that. And I'm also on a few other things. Underwriting at Florida International University, in the program in the study of spirituality, the Distinguished Speakers Series. So we have fun, Mm-hmm. We have fun and doing things like that at the same time. But I have to say that what I love to do, I like to create Instagram graphics. I do. I like art, and I was once a professional photographer. I call it my accidental career along the way. So about a month ago, I became obsessed with making Instagram graphics with and putting QuantumThink quotes on it. So come and follow me on Instagram. I need followers. QuantumThink Diva is my name. But I like really doing nothing. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people have a hard time with that. Or, like just sitting down in this beautiful, natural environment, and just my idea of relaxation is having no obligations, and seeing what bubbles up. Mm-hmm. And that's what we do. Okay. So we have fun. Okay. We're having a good time.
Good. And do you have any entrepreneurial role models?
That's a good question. Well, I'm going to say right now, and I don't know that much about him, but I'm going to pick Daymond John. Do you know who that is?
No, I don't.
He is the founder of FUBU Clothing, FUBU, and he's on Shark Tank. It's an ABC television based out of the United States show for entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. And they're all these entrepreneurs, and he's, majorly successful. And he has a new book out right now. I hope you're listening, Damon. I'm promoting you. Called The Power of Broke. And I haven't read it yet, but I'm about to read it. And he's talking, he interviewed a lot of different people. I heard him in an interview talking about it, where he interviewed people who were, born into wealth, and those who were born into poverty, and everything in between, and seeing how the power they were able to use whatever circumstances they had. But the other reason that I named him, and there are many, people love Richard Branson, I do too, but when I had a couple of years ago, someone was doing awards in Miami for entrepreneurs, and he asked me to be the MC of it, to interview these people. And it was in a private setting with a group of investors. And I got to interview Daymond John. And so I found him, and, I knew that he was, very, very successful. And just sitting, across the interview table with him with the microphone and realizing that he remained humble. He just a very, a purity of being, an integrity, and just like a kind-hearted human being who also wants to, help others become successful too. So I would say him.
Okay. Can we just talk about the time before you were an entrepreneur? Can you tell us what difficulties you had to overcome when you started your business?
Well, I think really knowing what business I wanted to be in, it was, and then, how, it's like, how do you apply it? And many of the businesses today are, do have to do with intellectual property, but it's not like, I think it was important for me. I knew there was a message that I had to get out into the world. And I knew that for whatever reason that I had this ability that if you told me what result you wanted, whether you are a major corporation, executive, whatever, entrepreneur, that I had the kind of thinking as one of my gifts to actually take you through it so that would be activated in you and you would get the result. Because that's how I always start when we're consulting and doing a new program or whatever with our clients. I always want to find out first, what do you really want? I mean, that's really the bottom line of anything is like, what do you really want? And so for me, I knew I wanted that, to be able to have that gift of creating what it is you really want in life, other people, to be able to activate that in other people and have a plan and a structure and principles to see that through, not just be, well, that's a good idea, take it from the realm of a good idea into an organized implementation. So I think it was, I don't know, I think it was really, I wouldn't call it exactly an obstacle, Neil, but I would say it was something that I had to think about. And how, and because I work from what do we really want, and I did that with my husband. We had another partner earlier when we first started the company, but then we parted ways because we wanted to use technology to replicate our work, and he wanted to use, hire consultants, like replicate through people. We wanted to replicate through technology. So I think that was an important thing too, is seeing, okay, well, unless we want to make that compatible, which we didn't want to at the time, it was a great parting of the ways. So I think it's very, very important for anyone to know, what do we really want? And when we looked at it, we created a strategic intent for our business. And the strategic intent, and remember, from a QuantumThink perspective, intent is an activating force. And it's said in the present tense. So it's guided, but it's not, like a specific. You put the measurable results that inside of the intent. So the strategic intent for our business is creating networked transformation for millions worldwide. And it was double entendre all the way. So creating, which meant creating. It could be us creating it, other people creating it, whatever, institutions creating it, creating networked. And this is even before the internet really became, part of life. It was still new. So we didn't even realize, there were no social networks at the time. what networked meant, but we knew networking was an important principle of life. So creating networked transformation. Well, yes, one of my Instagrams is, I want the world to quantum think, I'm on that campaign for a quantum thinking world, kinder, gentler, more fun. And so creating network transformation for millions worldwide. And it meant millions of dollars and millions of people. That meant both. Now, and that opens up, it brings to us many, many opportunities. But in terms of what do we want, and I think it's crucial, it's vital for every entrepreneur to really connect to what you really want. And so when we looked at, well, how would we have what would be the highest leverage point? Since we didn't want to hire a company of a lot of people, we outsource everything. So because I worked in corporate life for 7 years for a Fortune 50 company prior to starting our own business, and I did have a lot of people report to me, and it was a big organization. And so I had that experience. It was a great experience. I loved what I learned working in corporate life. However, I didn't want to be in the situation of managing people at that level of actually having direct employees. So we do outsource every aspect of our business, just about. And so when I looked at, well, then how are we, a two-person business going to have this transformation of thinking in the world? Then we looked at what were the highest leverage points. And so we deliberately chose to work with high visibility corporations. High visibility because they have a visible influence. And that if we could work with senior executives and managers in these companies, that through other people quantum thinking, through other people bringing that to their leadership, that is how we would scale up our business. It would be through other leaders and through high leverage point leaders. So these are the kind of decisions that we made, and we're still doing that. We branched out because I love, since my book came out, I love media. I love being in the media. TV is really my dream is to create a television series, and so. But, it's working through institutions, which we do, and it's also, working directly in the conversational culture that we live in today. And I love connecting with my readers, with the people, we all do on our Facebook pages, our LinkedIn. And so that's quantum thinking, is living in a both-and world. But I think the main point that I want to leave people with is that when you really get in touch with what you're passionate about, what you really want, what is the best leverage point for you to achieve what you want in your business, this is the starting point, because that is the nature of intent, and that will shape your actions, your decisions, and actually your conversations, how you speak and how you listen.
Okay. And did you have any doubts that delayed you starting your business?
No, I really didn't. Okay. I would say that it's not like we don't have, I think in the least action pathway, right? The way the energy or the thought goes, just because it's been that route before, of just being a human being, that doubt sets in, you have a vision for something, and the doubts will come and visit into your mind field. And I think the important thing, so it's not like I didn't have doubts, I don't have doubts, I don't have, those insecure moments. We all have that. I think it's a question of, though, even those doubts, even those insecurities, those thoughts, those emotions, you could call circumstances. So what I say in quantum thinking, there are circumstances, and then there is how you relate to those circumstances. And it's in that relationship of you to your circumstance where your power lies. And so, do I have doubts? Yes. Am I able to see it and interrupt it and create a direction for my intent? Yes. And of course, Alan and I, my partner Alan, we have fun doing it, because sometimes I'll voice my doubt, or what if this doesn't happen, or and he'll just look at me and say, well, why would you want to plug into that reality? Why do you want to hang on to that reality? And knowing that the nature of reality is it's not fixed and static and absolute. It's energy in flux, informed by intelligence. We are the focal points. We can direct it with our intent. I say, oh yeah, you're right, thanks. So it's like that. When you have this set of distinctions, you're able to call upon them in any moment of doubt. And therefore, the doubt doesn't become a stopping point.
Okay. And what mistakes did you make that slowed your journey?
I would say, let's see, what mistake did I make that slowed my journey? I'm sure I've made some.
You didn't make any
right now, but I would say this, that one of the mistakes that I think we made as a company, which actually didn't slow my journey. It's a funny thing in Quantum Think, one of the distinctions in the 21 of principles is called the Whole Movement of Purpose, and it has to do with distinguishing your purpose through looking at the patterning of your life. And how you do that, Neil, is I say it like this: imagine your life is one whole story. You see, because the industrial age worldview was the age of machinery, parts and separation, cause and effect, press on that and that happens. So when we look at our career or the development of our businesses or our journey in life, in our work life, and we tend to see it compartmentalized. Well, I was in a corporation, but that wasn't it, and so I quit there, and then I started my own business, and then that wasn't it, so I quit there, and then I became a holistic healer, or whatever it is for anyone. But when you're quantum thinking, we don't think in parts and separation. We see everything as a whole system, and that everything in your life, when you look at your life as one whole story, like a well-written novel or screenplay, there's nothing in it that doesn't belong, and there's nothing in it that's left out. Now, of course, we continue to evolve, and it's more organic and alive where, a screenplay ends. But, sorry, I had to take a sip of water there. That when you look at your life this way, the so-called mistakes become, let's say, an activating point to go beyond where you are now. So if I were going to say a mistake, in the early days of our company, we had a major corporation was our biggest client. That is, brought in the most revenue. We did the most big company. They had offices all over the country in the United States. And we worked with a lot of managers and executives, and let's say it was 80% of our business. And then one day, that company got a new chairman, and the chairman said no more outside consultants. It was temporary. Actually, that chairman turned out to be temporary, but everyone we were working with in this company said, sorry, we have to end the business relationship. And so immediately that ended 80% of our income. So I would say, and that was distressing, as you can well imagine.
Yeah.
And so the mistake, the learning of it was, and we all know the expression, don't put all your eggs in one basket. It was that we were riding on that, and we really needed to be more diversified. And so that was a big lesson. However, on the good side of it, on the looking from, the whole of your purpose, that led me to actually create QuantumThink as a system of thinking. So I was delivering the work. We were doing our consulting work, our workshops within the companies. And it was all the seeds of QuantumThink, but I hadn't quite distinguished it. I hadn't quite refined it to where it is now, which we trademarked in 1997 as an actual system of thinking, a body of knowledge. And so probably, and you can't really say what would have happened, it's conjecture, but that quote mistake actually it was a turning point for me because it tapped me on the shoulder. And when these kind of things happen, when a temporary failure, there's a distinction in QuantumThink called perspective of all perspectives. That when you're looking from the whole, Neil, and you see that right now something didn't work in my business, whatever it is, I mean, that's what it was for us then. But whatever it is, and it could be, wow, I was doing, we were functioning this way, or I had this type of website, and all of a sudden the whole, internet culture changed, and now that website is ancient history. So you start to see, oh no, or whatever it is. I gave a very, maybe too common of an example there, but whatever it is for you in your business, if you look at it just in the very narrow vision of this moment in time, then you might be limited, scared, doubtful about it, distressed. But if you keep the perspective of all perspectives and you see it as part of the unfolding of your business, that you're getting a message, you know what? If this happened, so now it's causing you to go beyond your current thinking, even if your current thinking was working, and you start to think in a new way. You start to explore other avenues. You start to go online and learn new things. You start to think, well, okay, I didn't do my TV series yet. Well, maybe I'll do a Blab series because now we have Blab. We can do a show. So it's like that. It creates, and every mistake is an opportunity, which is probably why I want to read Damon John's book, The Power of Broke, because I think it's a similar principle where, okay, you're broke, and, I love this quote, which was from the movie director, now I can't think of his name, it'll come to me, and he said, I've been broke many times, but I've never been poor. And when you think about that, I've been broke many times, but I've never been poor, that even when your cash flow goes to where obviously you don't want it to go, and maybe you're broke or maybe something happens, but you're never poor. because you always have your inner resources that no one can take away from you. And now, today, we have so many outer resources, infinite outer resources, that you can always make a turning point. You can always create a quantum leap in your life.
Mm-hmm. And what are some of the things that you did before you started your business that would be helpful tips to some of the listeners who haven't yet taken their first step on the entrepreneur way?
You mean things that I did in terms of what?
Well, anything. Any tips that you have that might be useful for people who haven't yet taken that transition from maybe leaving a job and setting up a business or that kind of thing?
Well, I think that to do it, if you can do it at the same time, I think it's a good idea. And, I've had clients who have been in that situation where you're in one job or because you need the income, and at the same time, you want to pursue your passion. And when you're thinking from, when the old worldview, the either or predict and control world of the industrial age, where now we're in the quantum world of the both end, well, how can I have it work the whole thing? And I think that's a very important tip, is to make sure that you're always in a strong foundation. So if you have work that's giving you your income right now, and you can just start, to formulate your business, to make sure that you have a good plan for it. And everyone knows that a business plan is something that's a living, breathing thing. So it's always going to be flexible. It's nothing set in stone. But when you have a strong foundation for both your new business and you have a strong foundation so that you're staying healthy financially in your life, so you're not having to worry, because it's very challenging to try to start something new if you're in a distressful point in your life. Not that you can't do it, right? The power of broke. But I would say that to the extent that you can function in that both and start. And here's the other thing, is I see a problem that a lot of entrepreneurs have. And because, we're all creative and we have a lot of ideas, and one of my brother's best friends, who was in an executive in the movie business in Hollywood, California, and what I was talking about, creating TV. And he said, ideas are a dime a dozen. Implementation, he said, execution is everything. And so we all have a lot of ideas. I say, and especially now, because I read the energies of the time, and the energies of the time is one of those conditions I talked about where there's increasing complexity, there's so much, and we want to be able to differentiate ourselves and be distinctive in the marketplace, is that to really focus, don't try to do. You may have an idea I know I do all the time because I have this unlimited creativity, but it's like a gift and maybe not at the same time. But I always, say something to me, I can create a whole business around it. But so you have a lot of ideas and you want to be able to focus on what the priority is and have that work, and have the other things spin off of that, be spin-offs. But what I find with many people, clients and friends, is that they are what's the word I'm trying to think of? They're diluting their success the speed of their success because they're trying to do too many things at once. So even if you see like an enterprise, right? You see an enterprise, oh, I'm going to have a podcast and I'm going to do this, that, and the other thing, and I'm going to make this product, and then we're going to make, promotional materials and sell those and t-shirts. You may see all that, put it on paper, but focus on one thing. Have that be successful.
Okay, thank you. Can we talk about the entrepreneurial journey a little bit here now? And can you tell me, do you think culture is important from the beginning in a business?
You mean the culture of the business itself? Yeah. Absolutely. And, this is really has to do with mind. And one of the things that I talk about is that the company has a mind. And the mind is the culture. Because it's all the different, the attitudes, the patterns of thinking, the habits of thinking that go on in the company create the culture. And just as you can get in a conscious relationship with your own individual mind, you can also have a conscious relationship with the company mind. And you can build around that. And, let me just say something that if you go to my website, DianneCollins.com, it's Dianne with two N's, DianneCollins, and sign up for my newsletter. When you sign up, you'll get a link to an article. It's called You Can't Get There From Here. And it's all about applying QuantumThink to business. It has very specific examples. Here's how the old worldview, here's how the new worldview, quantum thinking, in very specific things for entrepreneurs and for corporate life. And companies love that article. So I'm just saying, it just thought of me to offer it to people. That when you look at the idea of the company mind, you can look at the habits of your own company mind, and how you do that is you literally listen to what's coming out of people's mouths. What are they saying? Mm-hmm. Oh, there's too much competition. I don't know whether we can do that this year. The economy is bad. All the different things that people say. We tried that before and it never worked. So when someone comes up with a novel idea. So the company mind is like the internet, which is the mind of humanity, the infinite mind of humanity, the perfect metaphor for mind, because it's the good, the bad, the ugly, and the sublime. And it's the same thing in a company culture, a business culture. You'll hear great things, you'll have people who are excited about it, waking up, can't wait to come to work. You have to force them to go home, if they're staying late, working late. And then you'll have these other things, as I said, that these least action pathway habits that are limiting thoughts. And these are the things that you can begin to distinguish, and you can start to consciously create as a company with the people you're working with your partners, with your employees. How do we, what intent do we want to be operating from? What's our intent for marketing? What is our statement of intent overall? As I said, we created our strategic intent. So I think the culture is shaping the opportunities that attract you, and it also is shaping the decisions and the actions that you take. So yes, culture is very important. And the great thing is that when you're doing your business consciously this way and realizing the culture is a reflection of the company mind, you can actually get in good relationship with the company mind and shape it yourself.
Dianne, that was a fantastic answer. I just love the concept of the company has a mind and the mind is the culture. That's beautiful thinking. Thank you. knowing what you know now, is there anything that if you'd known it when you started out would have helped you to shortcut the learning curve?
Knowing what I know now. Well, I don't know how to answer that question,
Okay.
but I'm trying to reflect back. I do think that it's important to continue to be open. And sometimes, we get set in our ways. I know I do. And yet someone else say to me, in fact, we have an audio program, it's Quantum Think Audio Coach, which is in the next few months, it will be online again. Mm-hmm. And so that's another reason to sign up to my newsletter, because I don't send out a lot of newsletters at the moment, but I will be informing you on what we're doing new. And it's going to be a great program. The quickest way to quantum think. Of course, I want everyone to read Do You Quantum Think? But this is the Quantum Think Audio Coach and the 10 fundamental quantum think distinctions. And it's Dianne Collins and me delivering them together. And they're in the short oral form, about 20 minutes each. And so as you listen, it's coming in, it's coming in multidimensionally. And the reason that I brought it up is that, first I wanted to tell people about it, because on one of the distinctions, I forget which one, I think it's infinite possibility, which is the third distinction, thinking from infinite possibility. And what prevents us from thinking from infinite possibility are these least action pathways. So one of my least action pathways, Alan and I were bantering about it on this recording, is I was explaining, I'm an automatic no, and he's an automatic yes. So you say, Alan, do you want to? And before you even got what it is, it's like, okay, yes, right? And I'm like, whatever it is, no, I don't think so. So recognizing my own least action pathway, and I'm always looking at this, because we all want to do things, I want it my, not your way, my way. So when a suggestion comes to me from one of our associates, I have to then say to myself, I know I have that least action pathway. No. And then, but I know this idea came to me for a reason. So maybe I won't accept that idea exactly verbatim the way it was presented. But I always open myself to the possibility of it. It's that how can I use that idea? How can I satisfy what this person wants to contribute and satisfy myself at the same time? So I think if anything, it's that along the way, is that we can get, and it comes back to that distinction, success to mastery, where you can get caught up in your past-based successes, not realizing that they too can be a limit, and be always open to, well, wait a minute, what if I, let me listen to this from not knowing. Let me listen to this idea from not knowing. Let me go beyond my no and open up to what is the possibility being presented.
Okay. And how much does gut feeling influence your decisions in your business?
Well, gut feeling, in Do You Quantum Think? I make a distinction between, and this is the method of quantum thinking, what I call the art of distinguishing. That's one of the principles, a new worldview of learning, which is to bring something into your awareness in the present moment that it transforms your relationship to it. Past, present, and future. That's how transformation works. So it's not like collecting information and trying to remember it and then, apply it later. There are many things in life, skills that we need that for. But this is different when you're in a creative entrepreneurial creation. So the art of distinguishing is very important for leaders today and entrepreneurs. And because this is what gives you a greater access to that which you're trying to accomplish. So I make a distinction between instinct, intuition, and intellect. Whereas intellect, we know, is using that mental thinking part of us that, where we use reason, which is important. Of course, they're all important. Intuition, where sometimes people use intuition and gut, right? Mm-hmm. What's the gut? I look at the gut more like instinct, but it can be both instinct and intuition. So I think most successful people use what you would say gut to a great extent, but you have to use all three, because that is when you can really ground what you're doing. So you can get a gut feeling on something, and then that guides you. I would call instinct. Intuition is actually tuning into information that comes to you that is not obvious, that is not an obvious cause and effect. Intuition, tuning into what in science it's called non-local mind, the mind that is not local to you. So you're getting information, you're pulling it in from the surrounding quantum field. That's intuition. And that can come in many forms. It can come as words in your head. It can come in a feeling in your body. It can come as just an outright knowing. That's how I have mine usually. It can come in many ways. Intuition can be something happens in the outer world. A little girl comes up to you passing by on the street and says one sentence, and you think, oh, that was meant for me, to pull in that message. And then instinct is where it's just, bam, you're feeling it. Like, I know I should invest over here. And then you use the other, the intellect, the intuition, to ground that instinct. But I think instinct is a very important guiding, what you're calling gut, a very, very important guiding force, because we're multidimensional beings. So there are distinctions in us, mind, body, spirit, however you want to distinguish, but they're all interconnected. And what we could say, the mind-body intelligence, that is a very important intelligence. So when you get that gut, that is something to pay attention to.
Wow, what an answer. That's fantastic. Dianne, life is made of constant change, whether we like it or not. And some would say the only constant is change. How do you try to keep up with change?
Well, this is what I've been talking about really the whole time, is that when you realize that the nature of life is change, energy in flux, that means it's always shifting and changing, informed by intelligence, where we get to focus the energy of it. That you're not, it's not an issue. That's how I deal with it. I don't consider change an issue. I consider it of, oh, great, I get to make a conscious choice of how I want to deal with it. So in quantum thinking, we say, obviously we're in this time of a great transition for humanity and the earth, and things coming together in many ways, great and not so terrific and terrifying at the same time, that there are three ways you can be with the changes. The first way is you can, stick your head in the sand and pretend and think, oh, well, hopefully things will go back to the way they were, which is obviously not a thinking person's way, and that probably won't happen. The second way you can deal with the changes is that you can watch the changes as they're coming and adapt to them, which is okay. That is a rational way of dealing with it. And the third way is you can know that we're in a time of change and become a force yourself in the way the change goes. Become a force in the direction. And that is really what I like to think that we're all as entrepreneurs here to do, is that we're bringing who we are, our gifts, our talents, our passion, to become a force in creating the world collectively how we want it to be, and doing that through what we do individually.
And what is your favourite book on entrepreneurialism, business, personal development, leadership, or motivation? And can you tell us why you have chosen it?
Well, I want to choose the book I haven't read yet. The Power of Broke by Damon John. Because I've listened to your show. I knew you were going to ask that question, Neil. And it's so hard to pick a book. And I look at some of the business books that I have on my shelf, and I think, I should really throw those out. And they're not that old, because things change so quickly. So I'm going to pick the future, the book I haven't read yet.
Well, you're the only person who's picked a book they've not read.
The Power of Broke. I know.
But there must be some.
That's tuning in. I know. I like that book.
Yeah, but you talked about you mentioned Think and Grow Rich earlier, which is obviously a classic which many people talk about. But there must be some books that you've read in the past that just stand out in your mind, or some of the thinking in there is just, it's sort of affected you in some way or other, and you still apply it. Is there not?
Well, let me think. I like a lot of the what's considered the prosperity books, and these are these old time prosperity thinkers. But there's one that I love by Catherine Ponder. She has a lot of books, but I can't think of the name of the one that I probably have sitting on my table right now. But I just find her writing, it's kind of it's said so simply, like going into these principles, the principles of mind and consciousness. But she writes it in such an inspiring way. And then she gives the story, examples of, this woman was broke and then she thought this. And, you have to be careful about some of these things, because this is where people start to call this thought creates reality woo-woo, and it's la-la-la land, and they don't know what they're talking about. Mostly because we're still victimized, I would say. It's a good culture by the industrial world view in our thinking, where we have like a very a limited container for thinking, and a lot of people who are not yet familiar with, in the past 100 years, how the cutting edge science has discovered over and over again that the mind to mind and mind to matter influences and connections are real. And so because we don't learn that, we haven't yet, I'm saying it's changing now, in conventional educational system, where we study what? The physical, the brain, the connection of the brain, the connections maybe in the brain, but we're not learning these natural faculties of mind, like what we're talking about here, and the power of thought. So when I say you have to be careful, because thought creates reality is not a cause and effect dynamic. It's not like push on this and that moves. It's not mechanical. So it's not like, well, I had an intention, but it didn't work. Therefore, this whole body of knowledge is, false. It doesn't work that way. You have to understand that a dynamic of mind works like a field effect. And it works like planting a seed. You plant a seed of a tree, and then you start to see the sapling grow. So you have an idea. you have an intent, it starts to grow, and then you have to take the action of nourishing that idea. So that seed, that is going to bring about opportunities. That intent is going to bring up opportunities. So one is you have to be, focused on what opportunities are coming your way, because if you're not, you could miss it. So somebody comes to you and they say, I really need someone to come and speak in my company on 2000 marketing online in 2016, and it wasn't in your plan, so you're ignoring it, not realizing that was a function of your intent. You attracted that in, you connected that in, and then you have to nurture these opportunities. So I think, I do love those books because they're inspiring and they get right in a very simple way to the heart of the matter.
Okay, thank you, Dianne. Everyone, when you have a busy life, listening to audiobooks is a great way to expand your knowledge in the time when you may be doing other things, such as driving or when you are at the gym. We have a special offer for you of a free audiobook of your choosing. To choose your free audiobook, go to www.freeaudiobookoffer.com. As long as you haven't already signed up, then you will qualify. Dianne, what I'd like to do now is just speculate about a few things in the future. So, what one thing would you do with your business if you knew that you could not fail?
I would have QuantumThink distinctions be part of Apple Watch. Mm-hmm. And I would create an entertaining television series that totally expands the worldview of everyone, but in an entertaining way. Actually, I'm thinking about working on that right now. But something like a hybrid reality show that, anyway, that's what I would do.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And what skill, if you were excellent at it, would help you the most to double your business?
To double my business? If I were excellent at it?
Yeah.
Marketing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And in 5 years from now... Sorry? Go on.
In a word.
Okay. It's the shortest answer you've given me.
I know.
And in 5 years from now, if a well-known business publication was publishing an article on your business after talking to your customers and suppliers, what would you like it to say?
I would like it to say that my business is a perfect illustration of quantum thinking, and that it has been, a great catalyst for people around the world and companies around the world to be successful.
Okay, thank you. We're now at the part of the show where you share 3 golden nuggets with us. So, Dianne, what is your favourite quote and how have you applied it?
One of my favorite quotes is from Henry Ford, the American industrialist who brought about automobiles to the world. And he said, if you think you can, or if you think you can't, you're probably right. And that really says it all, right? If you think you can, or you think you can't, you're probably right. And that is, in a concise nutshell, that the power of thinking and the power of choice that we have, how to see what we're capable of and what we want, and to see it happening or not. Mm-hmm. And that's the power of thought. So obviously, my business is based on that.
Okay, and so that's how you've applied it then in your business. I suppose that's true, isn't it? Yeah. So, do you have any favorite online resources that you can share with us?
Let's see. You mean resources like apps,
Yeah,
things like that?
websites, anything you use. I mean, it could be something as generic as Google, or it could be something obscure that nobody's heard of before, or anything in between.
I like so many things I like. Well, right now I like Instagram.
Okay. Yeah.
I'll give you an app that I love. It's called Over, Over.
Yeah.
And it's an app for creating your own graphics.
Okay.
And that's what I use to create my graphics with, because I'm not a graphic designer, but I do like beauty and art, and I have been a photographic artist in one of my past lives, in my current life. And so I love this little program Over because it just gives you the opportunity to use your own photos, they give you access to other photos and to use typography, and just it's very flexible in a tiny little app. I think it only costs $3.99.
Okay.
Over.
Okay, thank you for that. And what is your best advice to other entrepreneurs?
My best advice is to live fully dimensionally. That is to look at all aspects of what makes a business successful. And it always begins with what you really want and what you're passionate about. And to be able to distinguish what it is, your talents and gifts, and what you're here to give to the world. And when you start there, and then you start to look at every aspect of the business, from creating the vision for it, the vision, the mission, the values, that part of it that people used to think of as soft, but very, very important, to the administration of it, to the financial aspect. Obviously, without that working, nothing works. And to really have fun with it. That's my best advice, is to see it fully dimensionally as a whole. Think of yourself, even if you're a solopreneur. I do this with my clients, to see yourself as an enterprise, right? Mm-hmm. The Neil Ball enterprise. Mm-hmm. And then you start to look at all the aspects that make up your business and your life so that you can live an integrated, fully dimensional life. And to, most of all, advice is remember to enjoy it. And it's not just a memory. It's like, you know what? I could have fun with this. Even when you're under pressure to get something done and you have timelines and all these other things and people waiting for you, or you're waiting for somebody you outsource to finish up something for you, or you need an idea and it's not coming to you immediately. It's all part of it. Mm-hmm. And it's all for us to hear. Be enjoying that which we do.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Everyone, if you didn't manage to get a note of Dianne's favourite resource or her favourite books, then you can find the links on Dianne's show notes page. Just go to theentrepreneurway.com and search for Dianne or Dianne Collins in the search box. Dianne, is there anything else that you'd like to add about your business?
Well, I'd like to say that I really am excited about our upcoming new online streaming program, because it's going to be something like a QuantumThink community where you can learn to quantum think immediately. We were producing these audios, the QuantumThink audio coach, we call it, the 10 core distinctions. We were producing it. Actually, I produced it originally as an audio streaming, but it was way ahead of its time. People were still on dial-up, and we never marketed it. And now, years later, everyone thinks it's so relevant. So we produced it afterwards as a CD, which we're not going to be doing anymore. And you can actually get it on Amazon right now, Quantum Think Audio Coach, as a CD. But on the website that we're producing for it, it's going to have a lot of different supplementary materials to it. And Alan and I are going to be doing once a month a live Q&A coaching teleconference call for anyone who has that product. And we'll be doing a live coaching program using those audios for coaches and consultants. So no matter what business you're in, we'll be doing that. So I'm really excited about that, Neil. And again, just so that you can stay up to date with it, please do go to DianneCollins.com, DianneCollins.com. Sign up for the newsletter and read the article that you'll get the link to. You can't get there from here. Get excited about that for your own business. And then I will be in touch with you that way. Or you can come to my Facebook fan page for Do You QuantumThink, and I can be in touch with you that way too. But to sign up for the newsletter is, of course, much better, and I will inform you as these things unfold.
Okay. Thank you, Dianne. Dianne,
thank you for letting me share that.
You've absolutely delivered so much value to us tonight. It's absolutely been fantastic. So thank you very much. You've given me we've certainly given everybody a lot to think about, and I love your thinking, and just this whole idea of quantum thinking is just awesome. So thank you for sharing that with us, and thank you for coming on the show.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to The Entrepreneur Way. Subscribe to our podcast and follow us on Twitter @Neil D. Ball.